Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old, to history, to anecdotes, to really wherever our whims take us. I'm Sash and today we're talking origins and also the behind the scenes, my not so secret obsession. It's a passion. We've talked a decent amount about Gwenpool on this channel, but have yet to tackle her origins, either within comic canon or outside of it, which is actually far more fascinating. So we're gonna look at this, because I have seen some comments of people who've watched all the other videos and are still going, who is this? Why is she here? What is going on? Send help. Well, worry not. You no longer need to live in the dark. I've got you. But before we dive in, if you love looking into characters' backstories, and the more confusing the better, hit that like button. Now, Gwenpool is a unique case, for she is a character whose genesis occurs outside of the comic book medium. Now, this has happened before, with some pretty famous cases, such as Harley Quinn or X-23, but Gwenpool is more unique still, as she also doesn't occur inside of a movie, or a TV show, or even a book. No, her first appearance is on a variant cover. So Gwenpool owes a lot of her existence to the massive popularity at the time she was conceived of Deadpool, and also of Spider-Gwen, or Gwen Stacy, as Spider-Woman. Gwen Stacy had been reintroduced as Spider-Woman for Marvel's now much beloved Spider-Verse event. She had first appeared in the Edge of the Spider-Verse series. Gwen Spider-Woman would prove so popular that she would get her own spin-off comic entitled Spider-Gwen, which would lead to that just being what most people call her, even though you could also call her Spider-Woman, or at the time of this recording, Ghost Spider, but she'll always be Spider-Gwen. Deadpool has been enjoying a steady rise in popularity since the late 90s that eventually culminated in him being a breakout in the minds of some overused character. He's everywhere, and if Marvel can find a way to put him someplace, he will be there. So let's set the scene. The year is 2015. You're hot on the heels off of a successful Spider-Man event that managed to launch a new character, and a cosplay darling. Hold on to that point, it's gonna be relevant later. You're in the middle of another big event, Marvel's Secret Wars. Again, not the one from the 1980s, a new one, 2015 edition. And this event, as is tradition, is having spin-offs, with the popular characters getting their own minis or titles, or just the traditional, we interrupt this comic to bring you this company-wide mandated event. Hope you like it, because if not, you have no choice. Unless it's well incorporated, which does happen on occasion. Marvel wanted to ride the high that this newfound popularity in Gwen Stacy was engendering, so they employed a fan favorite method since the 80s, 1986 to be precise, and that was the use of variant covers. They decided to launch a whole series of variant covers starring Gwen Stacy as different characters, as that is kind of what had happened with Spider-Man, even though there had been a whole backstory and lore attached to it. These wouldn't have that. They would just be a cute, fun gimmick that would hopefully boost a few sales. So you got Gwen as Doctor Strange, Groot, Wolverine, and the most importantly for our purposes, Deadpool. She appeared on the cover of Deadpool's Secret Wars #2. This cover would feature Gwen Stacy as Deadpool in the full Gwenpool costume, which is a version of Deadpool's but with Spider-Gwen's color scheme minus the black. This cover took off, particularly with a certain segment of fandom, that being cosplayers. Cosplayers love this costume, and it took off. It is always important to remember that fandom is not a monolith. There are many different subsections, and they all participate in fandom differently. There can be overlap, but some people will stay in their corners. This mattered for a couple of reasons. One, Marvel was encouraged by seeing so much fan excitement over a character who didn't even really exist. And two, Spider-Gwen was also a cosplay darling, and she was proving to be very successful. Could there be some kind of correlation, and was there a way that they could play off of it? And what was the harm in exploring what could be a pre-existing built-in fanbase? So then Marvel editor Jordan White tasked writer Christopher Hastings and editor Heather Antos with a mission, should they choose to accept it. By which I mean they probably had to, because it's their job. They were to write a story for the character, Gwenpool, create her out of nothing and insert her. At first it was supposed to just be a one-shot, but eventually it ballooned into a 3-issue backstory within Howard the Duck. And by backstory, I mean backup. Those are different things. 3-issue backup. She's backing it up. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not allowed to make jokes like that. She's 19, how dare you? So since Gwenpool had no proper origin, she would suffer from what I like to call Donna Troy syndrome. This is the fact that people would assume things about her origin based on her appearance, and also that her actual origin would always be a little bit confusing, and there would be cries to tweak it and change it. Hastings would come up with the idea of Gwen as a fourth wall breaking character with a twist. She would come from a universe where she herself herself was the fan, and hence her fourth wall breaking would be because of the knowledge that she had, and would also make her feel like her actions didn't really have consequences, which would lead to her more zany attitude. This was also so she would have some of the Deadpool-esque character traits that people would assume that she had based on her appearance and costume, but he was also trying to make it her own thing. She would go on to get her own series and float about in a kind of nebulous space for a while, until at the time of this recording, Gwenpool strikes back. She's a bit of a difficult character to place, because she is by her very creation separate from the rest of the Marvel Universe. It's a fun concept and it can be worked with, but it is a bit difficult to maintain long term. That doesn't mean it can't be done, it just means you have to work at it. However, Gwenpool has also caused a wide range of reactions: anger, annoyance, indifference, love, confusion. So let's take a look at some of them. All of the reactions, like with all things. So let's start with the confusion. Based on the appearance and her name, many people assume and expect that she is either an alternate version of Deadpool or Gwen Stacy. This is of course because of the costume and the fact that under it she looks like Gwen, and her name is actually literally Gwen. Her full name is Gwenpool, with an E at the end. There's a big push from some fans to fight the idea that Gwen is derivative, or like the other comic book characters. And she is unique in canonical origin and her genesis. But she does owe her existence to these other pre-established characters. So she is derivative in the sense that she would not exist if they did not. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. A character can be spawned from a pre-existing one and still be great. But it is a hill that some will die on. I mean, I know a thing or two about dying on hills. My soul is spread across many hills. Personally, I get why you would be confused. In a world where either of the former options is more plausible than her actual origin, if you're just casually passing through, yeah, it could be very perplexing. And there were some who loved her from the start and felt that she was an ode to fandom, a love letter as it were, and also an opportunity that gave writers a chance to address issues that otherwise may not be talked about. Now, on to the anger. Whew, how to tackle this? In some segments of fandom, there can be tension between certain, well, groups. In this case, we're going to talk about tension between comic book fans and cosplayers. I'm putting quotes around both because you can be both, and there's much more interplay and cross sections than that, but we're going to take the extremes. Some people look down on cosplayers or feel that they're only in it for the money or attention, or that they are fake fans. This especially comes up when we're talking about female cosplayers. You know the thing, the fake nerd girl trope. Hence, some were bothered by a character coming into existence because of this subset of fandom, as they felt that this cheapened her or that this was not an audience to cater to, since they were not real or true fans. Okay, so there are many different types of fans and many different ways to enjoy fandom, and one is not more valid or better than the other. They're just different. There are more or less informed fans, as that tends to be the barometer for true fans across all the segments. So basically, just enjoy how you enjoy and let other people enjoy how they enjoy. Have parallel fun. This anger has led some to be very protective of Gwenpool and pushing even harder for her legitimacy than they would be otherwise. And of course, there are some who just feel that she's a cheap sales tactic. But to that I say, what isn't? I am too cynical to be. In short, in some circles there's a lot of tension around her, while others have just managed to skirt around that and enjoy or not enjoy or be ambivalent to her for who she is, not how she was created. And the longer she exists, the more that will happen. They claim a retcon to Gwen's origin is on the horizon at the time of this recording and that it will change everything. We'll have to see how that shapes up. There is a way to make Gwen fit into this universe more seamlessly than she currently does, but it would involve changing some of the things about her that people do enjoy. She would have to have her actions have more permanent consequences and maybe give up some of her knowledge. We'll see. Different ways to do it. I have ideas. Do you have ideas? Share them down below. How do you like your Gwen, if you like her? So that's how Gwenpool came to be. Did you know about her origin? Does it bother you? Do you like it? Would you cosplay as Gwenpool? I would, but my legs get cold real easy. Were you confused when you first saw her? Okay, that's enough questions. I'll leave you be. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day and watching Casually Comics. I appreciate you giving me that precious commodity. I'm Sasha. Please do all of the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. And I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.